Hey everybody, I'm Brandon and this is Comic Conversation. It's been so good engaging with you all on the Facebook page, on Twitter, on Instagram, but now I get to have a conversation in person. I have my first guest ever on Comic Conversation. It's my buddy, host of Orsini's Uncensored Mind, broadcaster in wrestling. He's actually managing now as OTP. You've got a full play, A.J Orsini. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, sir.
Right.
My God, you've been a guest on my show so many times, I thought I'd pay it forward.
You're enjoying our new little set here.
I am. There's a whole new set here. I feel very comfortable, far more comfortable than I should. I love the buttons.
I don't look like that anymore.
I've shared this show a few times, and now I'm glad to finally be here.
Well, the last time I was on the show, like, this beard wasn't even fully grown out yet,
no,
and my mustache was doing a weird curly thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing comic cosplay. I was doing Seahawk from She-Ra. So if hey, producer Joe, throw those pictures up there.
Okay.
All right, yeah. All right, see,
look at that. Putting the pictures up right now. You look deadly in these pictures.
I'm a man.
There you go.
Yeah. But we're not here to talk about She-Ra or my curly mustache
or my Halloween costume as Emmett from Lego Movie. That's what I was this year. I don't have to wear these the whole time. I was just fucking around.
Really, this is just an excuse for me to talk to you. And it's been a while since we had a conversation. And every time I'm on your show lately,
a while since we've had a comic conversation.
Yeah, and when I'm on the show now, when I'm on your show, I got to share time with some other buddies.
Usually.
No, this time it's just you and me.
Yeah.
And we're talking something we never spoke about on your podcast.
Something I've never spoken about on my podcast. I may have mentioned it, but I haven't really gone too in depth. So for any of my fans who are watching this show, they're gonna learn a little something about me here today.
Yeah, we're talking Power Rangers.
Yeah. Power Rangers, baby. Yeah, I was a huge Power Ranger mark back in the day. Huge.
I was not. Like, I remember when it was on.
And here's the thing. I'm here to school you today on
No, but I still watched.
Okay.
That's the thing.
But you weren't a fan. You watched it, but you weren't a fan. You were like, man, this is basic programming.
We didn't have like 24/7 children television. So
if you missed an episode, you just never saw it.
If there was,
that's just how it happened.
Or you waited the entire season to end before the repeats came on.
I knew a guy who did not see. He saw. This is going to be a throwback for some of them. Like the Zeo Ranger thing was a 5-part. So he saw 1, 2, missed 3, missed 4, and saw 5, and he's regretted it his entire life. I'd be questioning if he's still with us to the day over it.
I ran into that issue with the X-Men cartoon.
And yes.
I was watching that regularly, and I think it wasn't until like maybe the 3rd season where I missed one of the episodes, and I was like, you know what? It's a dub now. I'm done. I'm done, and I don't think I watched another episode of X-Men afterwards. But Power Rangers, for me, there was really nothing else on that could really, I guess, be as entertaining. And to its credit, even though I didn't really enjoy the show that much, the action figures I thought were really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the video games were a lot of fun.
They had an actual Megazord set.
Yeah.
It was like the separate Zords, and then you can actually form a Megazord. It was pretty awesome. Awesome stuff. I did have one of those, too, by the way.
I wanted it to see.
Huge Ranger mod.
I had I think it was like a 12-inch Red Ranger figure, and I thought it was really cool, but then like the Green Ranger had the golden chest plate. And I was like, that's the one I really wanted. And I'm not even a Tommy fan.
It just looked different from the rest. That's why it was cool.
I mean, and it's a cool uniform.
Absolutely.
So as experienced as I was with the Power Rangers, the TV show, the video game, I never actually read any of the comics.
You know what's funny? As big of a fan as the show as I was, I didn't know there was a comic. I found out a few years ago myself that there was a couple of non-canon issues, and I never really got a chance to pick it up. But then you invited me on the show, and something awesome happened.
Well, the lovely thing about companies that like Dynamite and Boom, and we're going to be looking at the Boom series, Volume 3, which was really like the beginning. Like, even though it's Volume 3, that's kind of like their beginning of their series.
Yeah.
As a continuous storyline.
Yeah, you sent me on a horrible path. Because I'm a Power Ranger fan, so I was told we're going to focus on Volume 3, but I can't do things in the middle. It's like my Netflix binging or my regular TV shows. Like, I have to watch it from beginning to end. So I actually read it from 1 to 3, and then I took my time after that and read 4 and 5. So I'm up on it now. I'm good to go.
And what really got me about this, and one of the things I wanted to ask you, because when we have conversations about comics on your show, it's very Marvel focused.
That's my bad. I kind of lean in that direction because of my familiarity with Marvel, right?
Well, I think I'm guilty of it too.
You're an enabler.
Because I grew up reading a lot more Marvel comics.
Right.
But,
right.
But like cartoons, I was watching a lot more DC cartoons. Yes, I did watch Spider-Man, but I felt like the better cartoons were coming from DC. You know, the Batman cartoon, the Superman cartoon, Justice League Unlimited.
I don't mean to
Titans.
sound like a sellout, but of all the shows that I did watch, my favorite was the actual Batman animated series. I actually thought it was one of my... as big a Marvel guy as I am, I always gave the nod to that series as one of my favorites. Great writing, always kept me guessing, and they gave me Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and Bruce Timm is just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Tim and what's the other one? Dini. Paul Dini. There you go. The Dini-verse.
Yes.
So that's what got me into DC, but I could be very Marvel-centric myself. What I like about Dynamite and Boom is that they have different properties, whether it's stemming from television or video games, sometimes original stories that they want to tell coming from these companies, and it gives me something different. But I remember being younger, looking at products that were from I want to say like licensed properties.
Okay.
They didn't interest me before. Like if it was a licensed product, I was more than likely not going to pick it up because it wasn't canon to the TV series.
Such hoity-toity taste. I'm not impressed a lot.
But then I learned. I have to ask you.
Yes, ask me.
When you see a comic book and it's not something that's maybe tied to a familiar universe, or maybe this is an offshoot of a television programming, but it's not the television show.
Right.
Are you less interested? Or when I said Power Rangers, it's just, I'm all in.
Power Rangers gets me in the door. Yeah, I will give you the opportunity. It doesn't need to be. I love the things that continue. I've said it on my show. Like I'm a bigger fan of a continuation than a remake. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's been 30 years, I like the idea of the story continuing as opposed to just taking someone's art and just making it your own. When it comes to comics and being either from another comic or for a TV show, I don't necessarily rule it out the gun. I'll give it a shot as long as the source material is something that I'm interested in. Like if it's an original content thing, maybe just to try it out. I don't know how long I'll stick with it, but for something like, for instance, Power Rangers, where I'm already this big Power Ranger fan, knowing that it didn't follow and it's not very canon didn't really deter me, because I'm thinking, well, maybe the writer has a take on it that's a little different, and maybe it will be just as interesting. And pleasantly enough, this was very interesting to read. I was really into it. As I said, I could not stop reading it. I had to go all the way to the end to figure out where this all went and how it went down.
Do you have like a favorite Power Rangers team?
Yeah, like
that's
like asking my favorite child. I'd have to
because I feel like I don't know if it's just because I'm surrounded by a bubble of people of my own generation, or because Disney XD seems to play a lot of the, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers seems to be the one that we always get. Is Mighty Morphin your favorite set of Power Rangers? Are you a SPD kind of guy? Actually, that was SPD, not SBD, no silent but deadly.
Space Patrol Delta. It's hard to answer that question because so many. I'll start naming teams that no one's really heard of. Because what happens is like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, everyone kind of knows that team, right? And then ZL, like a little bit, Turbo, because there was a movie, so perhaps, and Space is usually where the common person kind of falls off. And then it's like Lost Galaxy and Lightspeed Rescue and all that. That's where I lose everybody. So whenever I start to think back, because there's been 20, 25 years now worth of Power Rangers shows, and every line and every year is different pretty much after 6, which most people don't know that Space actually ended the Rita Repulsa story. Everything after that they just kind of pulled out of their butt cheeks. So my Mighty Morphin always stays with me because it was my first taste of it. It's what got me hooked to the concept of it. It's, Tommy and Jason, and that always stays with me. But I can name seasons in the middle somewhere. Like my favorite season was Time Force. It was one of the first female leaders. There was a love triangle thing going. The writing of it kind of grabbed me. I wanted to follow every episode. The best writing season was probably RPM, which is even farther. Like that's like season 19, 20 or whatever. So I'm all over the map with that. I can pick a little bit of each season along the way and say to myself, yeah, that was pretty cool actually. So Mighty Morphin, yeah, it's in my heart, but it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, that was my favorite, or that was my favorite. So, but this comic that we read brought back a lot of old juices. Like I started thinking about it again. So,
well, what I found reading this, because we're looking at Mighty Morphin. That's the
original
that's the
team.
title. It's the original team. That's what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Written by Kyle Higgins. I'm familiar with him more from his Marvel work.
Right.
But being able to see him do this is still a product that I'm familiar with. So seeing him jump on this team, it opened up something that I didn't have available to me in the TV series.
Okay.
The world of the Power Rangers is much bigger because we're seeing them not just in Angel Grove.
Yeah. That was another part that I think a lot of casual fans kind of lost interest in, because for so many seasons in a row, they had you just caring about these characters. Season 1, season 2, it was always kind of the same team.
Mm-hmm.
They would mix pieces along the way. They had the big famous contract dispute in which we lost Jason, Trini, and Zach, so they had to replace those characters. Regardless of what differences they gave you, they kind of kept in the continuality of it. They fitted into a particular mold. Once they got away from that, I think they lost a chunk of what people really liked about the show. And even though the formula stayed the same, without the connection to these characters the way that we had before, you start to really lose that interest. So for me, I forgot the question.
Well, it was
I knew
really
where
a
I was
question.
going with that.
As much as just stating.
No, you don't have to cut. If you
Don't
mind-
cut, Joe!
If you don't mind editing it out, but I was going somewhere with that and I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Well, there's no real question as much as just the size of the world now. Now that
That's right.
the budget isn't an issue.
Right. That's where I was going with that, in the sense that once we left Angel Grove, so to speak, because that space season was pretty much the end of that. Everything after that, we were in a jungle at one point, and we were on another planet.
It's like once we're in a setting, we're in that setting.
Yeah. They pretty much, once they pick a destination, they're in that destination, because the point of the Power Rangers is to defend. It's to defend that one particular area. To expand out, like for instance, space was literally in space, but yet still managed to keep its roots on Earth, to some degree. So yeah, I mean, they tried to expand out into all the Time Force. They went into a different literal time period, and then SPD is still space, but it stayed within that one general planet.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, they try to expand out, but it's hard for them because the whole purpose of this team is to defend their particular area or turf or that particular population.
Being able to see the Power Rangers as world defenders now, was that something that was new for you? Like it's not just in the title, getting to actually see them in places like France.
New, but also that's what made sense to me.
Hello?
I actually didn't think defending Angel Grove for as long as they did made sense, because it's just one city, and you have these 6 beings who are supremely powerful, right? They have these powers that they control these big mechanical Zords and all that stuff, and they're taking all of these resources and defending Angel Grove, which probably isn't even in the 100th percentile of population in the state of California. And yes, I did think this as a child. California is a huge state, and Angel Grove is about that big.
That makes sense, because while I didn't know exactly where Angel Grove was supposed to be, I did feel like that spot that they used to hang out at was very similar to the Max at Bayside High.
Yes! Ernie's Cafe or something like that. Where the guy that's where they had all those smoothies. That's the first place I learned where smoothies were. I didn't know. I'm from New York. In the 90s, we didn't have too many smoothie shops.
Yeah, the only froyo we had was Go-Gurt.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have eaten that from the Bronx. I wouldn't have had a Bronx froyo at all back in the 90s.
No.
Absolutely not.
So in this first volume, we're actually seeing some lead up. Without saying to where exactly we're leading up to, the story does begin. We see, I believe it's Jason. No, not Jason. I'm sorry. We have Tommy and Goldar trapped in a shadow dimension.
Yeah. So this is what I like about the comic from the beginning, is that they took the story kind of where the show took it.
Right.
There was as a reader who's reading this for the first time and coming from a background with the show, I liked the idea that it gave me a lot of familiar stuff to start off with.
Right.
Goldar, and just like in the show when Green Ranger and Goldar were in the shadow of the Dark Dimension, excuse me, and meeting for the first time, and two of them having their swinging contest to see who's gonna impress the Empress and impress Rita more. That felt very familiar. I actually liked that a lot. Mm-hmm. And they did leave out a lot of the campiness, which as an adult I can appreciate.
Yeah.
I think as a kid I kind of got into the campiness, but now as an adult, the tone that it took early on grabbed me a lot. I was like, this is pretty cool.
It made me really want to think about how we address the style, I guess, or how we go about describing what this world is. I think referring to what it actually did, removing the campiness, is a lot better than referring to it as a darker world. Because that's how I feel that even Jason David Frank, I feel like whenever he's promoting a Power Rangers product, he often promotes that he wants to do a more serious. And more serious normally leads to descriptions like gritty. And I didn't necessarily feel like the comic was gritty. If you look at the artwork, it's still very bright, very, very colorful, easily approachable.
They look almost identical to the show. I mean, obviously the artist stayed within his realm of design, but it pretty much... The suits, the battle cries, the morphing sequence, they kept everything as close as possible.
And being able to see that and seeing we have this serious story being told in front of us just engaged me more, because I didn't think Power Rangers ever particularly had, or at least what I was keeping up with, had great writing.
To be fair, and maybe I'm playing devil's advocate, this is also during a time period in which seasons were longer. So if you take a random Power Rangers season, we'll say, I don't know, even 10 years ago, like the mid-2000s or 2000, that season probably has 24 episodes maybe. Mm-hmm. If you go back to season 1, there's like 70 episodes of season 1. So that's like how many hours of content he has to write for one season. And then it took like a few months off and we're back in the saddle again. And then they threw the movie on him, which screwed everything up because the movie wasn't canon to the show. So they had to...
Was it not? Didn't their Zords change?
They did, but that's see, again, if you're a casual and you don't know this, I'm going to school you right now, here's what happened. So they did the movie, and the movie went over well, but they couldn't bring the actor who played the villain into the show. So what they did was they created almost like a completely different villain for them to fight. Still with the birds and the Tengas and all that other stuff. They still had literally all the bad guys from the film except the main one.
No Ivan.
No Ivan and the lady. They did a whole nother lady or some other version of it on the show where they got their ninjutsu powers. I'm still trying to figure out how that worked. Even down to the whole thing, and they had like their own little special ninja suits before. They did like a beta version. They went from regular people to Power Rangers, and then with the ninja thing, they went person, ninja suits, and then Power Rangers. Like there were so many different versions. It was hard to keep up, but yeah. So
I used to work in a Toys R Us. I sold a lot of different Power Rangers.
Yes, you did.
I didn't know exactly what they were. It's like, this is what they're wearing now? Okay, let's go ahead and put that out there. Continuing with the storyline, we see them in the Shadow Dimension, and we also see Rita following a shadowy figure. We don't know who it is. Right. A lot of people who may have seen advertisements might know who it is, but if this is your first time picking it up, you don't know at all.
Which is the situation I was in. I didn't know.
And this puts Goldar in a very interesting scenario with Tommy, because now they're actually talking, having a conversation, and devising a plan together, because he does not trust who Rita's taking advice from.
Right.
What else we know, what little we do know, is that what's currently attacking, I believe it's France, is... I don't know. What's attacking France is, it seems like it's a Zord, and it has components very similar to the Dragon Zord.
Right.
It's like the Black Dragon, and so it's very interesting seeing just Goldar having reservations discussing with Tommy what these reservations are and what he's willing to do versus what he's not willing to do to help the situation. Because in the end, his interests are still for Rita.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of this comic as I was reading it literally all the way through was actually Goldar. Because they did something a little different with him and they made him... In the show, he always considered himself a warrior and a soldier, but he was goofy and he did a bunch of stupid stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to take someone seriously when they're talking like this all the time.
How many episodes ended with a fade out of him going, like a full-on face palm? But here, they took that one characteristic of soldier and warrior and they kind of ran with that. And he just seemed conflicted for a lot of this comic, where it's like, I do want to make Rita happy, I want to be the good soldier and her number one guy and all that stuff, but at the same time, I'm not feeling that same vibe from her. She's listening to Tommy, she's listening to this dark shadowy figure. What's right, what's wrong, what should I be doing? He seemed like that for pretty much most of the comic, which I actually liked. Because he didn't know which way he was going to fall. It made him feel like an important character.
Right.
Like him making a decision on which way he would land would be the deciding factor as to which side would be kind of have the advantage. So I actually like that.
I'm going to move on to another comic and talk about another characteristic that stuck out to me in this volume. There was an issue pretty much dedicated to Billy. It was just very Billy-centric.
Yes.
And when you look at the Power Rangers, I don't want to say that it fit in like that high school movie kind of characteristics of you've got, you know, the jock, because they were all kind of jocks. But yeah. But you had,
once the putty showed up, they were all athletes all of a sudden.
So it was like, okay, you got Kimberly, she was the pink, you know, so she was, I guess, you know, the prissy kind of, ew. You know, that was like, ew, gross. And,
like,
but she was like the acrobat jock. You know,
and everybody's first crush.
Producer Joe agrees. He's not in the background. We see you. But,
yeah, we're the eyes and ears for what happens behind the camera.
Yes, we have Zach, who is
Hip Hop Keto.
Yes, that's what it Hip Hop Keto. You know, so he was always dancing around. Even
every jackass thought that they could fight dance in the 90s because of Zach. Underappreciated Walter Jones is.
There's like a clip I saw on Facebook of some other dance-related movie he must have participated in, and it's like, oh, so you're just Zach everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
This is what you do.
They just put a camp. I think halfway through the season they didn't bother to tell him that he was even on a Power Rangers show. They just every now and then just put your hands together and we'll do the rest. They just let Walter Jones be Walter. That's it.
Now with Billy was an odd person in the equation because he was a ranger. He was one of the teenagers with attitudes. Mm-hmm. But in the first
never clarified what attitude he had because he seemed like a good soldier, but all right.
But with the first couple of seasons, he was always cowardly. It was even to a point where if you played the Super Nintendo Power Rangers game, and I'm not sure if it's the same in the Genesis one. It's
relatively the same, yeah.
But you know, everyone has, you know, your general just like attack buttons, you know, punch, jump, etc. His attack, he would cower in fear as he would attack you. He would throw a punch while holding his head like
like he doesn't want to really touch you.
But he was still like, once he had the costume on, it seemed like he was willing to throw down. And after the contract dispute that you spoke of, once we lost Jason and Trini, Billy actually seemed like they gave him a more forthcoming role. He was, I guess, as the leader or more experienced person on the team.
Right, yeah.
It did seem like even without the suit, he was fighting a little more. Mm-hmm. It was nice in the comics seeing how we balance out the fighter versus having fears.
Right. And the comic, it seemed like it was more of an insecurity than a fear.
Right.
Because he sees these great rangers next to him who are multi-talented, not just physically, but Trini was also pretty smart and can figure these things out. Jason had these fantastic leadership skills. Kim might have been a little whatever, but she always stood up for herself. Everyone seemed to have the right amount of confidence and skill level to do this job. And he always felt like he was always a step behind.
Right.
And I remember in the show, it was exactly the same way. And in the comic, they explained it a little different than they did on the show. I guess because it was a kid's show and whatever, they just explained things different. But I remember in the show that Billy the character would voice these same frustrations. There was actually a few episodes dedicated to Billy, kind of like the Eeyore of the team. He would just, everybody else is so great. So what ended up happening on the show was that I remember Trini and Kimberly taking a liking to him, and they were teaching him more of the gymnastics side of things. That's why in the movie, I always laugh, because by the time we got to the movie, all of a sudden Billy was just like this master fighter and apparently gymnast. There's a scene in the film where they kind of give an homage to the show where Kim and Billy backflip their way out of trouble, but it's like the longest concession of backflips in the history of gymnastics everywhere, and they just go boom, 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 boom. And it's the same thing, and even in the film they did a little tribute where he punched one of the people and it was using his hand, and it was like, ew. But in the show, I guess because they had time, they slowly developed him into a competent combatant, but always tried to focus on his intelligence in the comic. I think it was more or less just dealing with his insecurities. The morphing into the Blue Ranger was more of a shield for him.
Right.
It's more of a he was able to do more as the Blue Ranger because he felt stronger. Obviously, the suit enhances your strength, your durability. You don't get hurt as much as a Ranger, thus letting out all of this angst that I'm sure he had as a person of his attitude, and to be surrounded by all these people is just motivating. I think that's how I always interpret it. So when I read the comic and I saw him dealing with all these different things and expressing that the way that he did, again, brought me back home, because I was just like, all right, yeah, this is the way Billy should be.
Agreed. Because I felt that you mentioned that there were character-driven episodes. Mm-hmm. However, I don't feel that there's really, when you got a half-hour time slot and most of your episodes don't tie in, a lot of them weren't.
You gotta fight the hamburger guy too. You can't just do character development. You have to fight that guy that they made a monster out of a tree for some reason. And
the pizza guy's always lost.
The pizza guy. There was also like a big pita. Like a sandwich or whatever.
It's just anything that could be.
Oh, they were running out of ideas. They did a Broadway episode. You remember the one where Tommy and Alicia just couldn't stop singing? Oh, there was some spell they were in where they just sang like the whole episode. They were running out of ideas.
I don't know that one. I had pretty much stopped watching by this point. I didn't know. Were they like the first musical episode? Because now it seems like after Glee, everybody's got a musical episode.
YouTube it. I'm telling you, you'll laugh your asses off when you see it. It's hilarious.
Character-driven story is another reason why I find myself more drawn to this comic than I was ever in the TV show.
Yeah.
I did watch the movie. Once again, I'm not, even though I have my shade that I toss at the TV show, I was watching the show, I was watching the movie, but it was just never done. I even watched the new one. That new one, which I actually enjoyed. Yeah, although Goldar, they let me down with Goldar.
Yeah.
Like he's like made of gold.
I nerded out when they played the original theme for that 30-second block. I remember grabbing my wife. I was like, yeah! I had my moment. I did. So yeah, it was pretty good.
But seeing Billy taken this way and using his intelligence, use it as a way to approach his self-confidence issues.
Right.
He was reading The Hero's Quest. He was, and actually getting a moment to talk with, when he was talking to someone, he was talking to Zach about it more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And it was nice seeing these areas where it wasn't, it didn't feel like it was just the Tommy show. That was my other fear. It's like, is this the Tommy show?
Which is what the actual show eventually became. It just became the Tommy Oliver show, right? Yeah.
And even though he's a very important character that we're about to jump into once again, it didn't just feel like it was, we're only focused on the lead. We are focused on each Ranger. They're all important.
They made sure that you were aware there was 6 leads. It wasn't just about, because, Tommy was everybody wanted to be Tommy. When Rangers was at his peak, everybody wanted to kick like him and do all kinds of stuff like him. I appreciate the fact that not only the writer but the artist, the whole team, everyone made sure that when it was time to shine on somebody else, the comic book did. I mean, probably more justice than the later end of those shows.
We're gonna fast forward just a little more.
Okay.
We do see Tommy. Tommy manage to escape the realm thanks to Goldar. Right. Goldar has control of the realm. He could have escaped anytime he wanted to.
Anytime. He has control over it. So
so Tommy's out. Tommy, along with Billy, work on a plan to take down this Zord that is very much appearing like the Dragon Zord. And in the way of how they managed to defeated from inside. They manage to find themselves sucked into the villain's, I don't know if I should say alternate dimension, and we don't really know. We don't know if it's an alternate timeline. We don't know if it's a future, but they are not in Kansas anymore.
No.
We are
long
looking
before
at
the days of the MCU, multiverses existed, and that's where I think, again, you start to lose people, because now you have to follow up on it, and it gets tough,
but we are in a Angel Grove, and Angel Grove, and but it's not the Angel Grove we know. There's a giant statue, and once again, brilliant artwork. But we got this giant Rita statue.
Yes,
and then a slightly smaller statue of, and I'll say the name because at this point, you know, it's revealed, but it's Lord.
That's why 3 is so important. This is where we learn who the true villain of this series is, right?
Now we learned that it's Lord Drakkon. Now, Lord Drakkon, and I don't feel like it's a secret to anyone. I feel like, if anything, who he is what got people who were reading this in the first place. It might be Lord Drakkon that got people to check it out from the beginning, because Jason David Frank was out there doing like real commercials
in the actual suit.
Yeah, like in the Lord Drakkon suit.
Yeah.
And so while that's not really a shocker to me reading it, seeing the world for the first time.
Yeah, how they built up to that reveal was really good. Yeah.
Now another part that I liked is these Rangers are not inexperienced. We are at a point where Tommy's already on the team. They've had their share of battles. So while they didn't necessarily break the fourth wall at any point, we get moments where, well, just the way that I described it, we're either in the future or in an alternate timeline. There is no moment where they're like, what's going on? It's
but what happening?
Tommy had got here with Billy, and so the both of them are looking at the situation, analyzing and figuring out, okay, something's up, and I think I know what's up. It's one of these two variables. Which one it is yet, I don't know. I like that it didn't insult our intelligence as readers.
Yeah. The show ruins me for stuff like this, because this build up to Drakkon, like you just explained, how it shows you an alternate version or an alternate dimension version of Tommy, where Tommy was given the choice of freeing himself from the bonds of Rita or staying, and in this verse he chose to stay, thus creating this mass whatever. We're still learning as the comic book at this point continues on, but leading up to this reveal, Tommy is going through all kinds of hallucinations and all these ties to Rita that's messing with his head. And it's so good when you read it. And I just laughed when the Drakkon reveal happened. I just kind of laughed because in the show, it was a candle. You know? That's how they wrote this character off. Out of nowhere, mysteriously, as the season progressed, his power's tied to a candle. And should the candle wilt down to its final moment, he will no longer be the Green Ranger. So I don't know who in the writing room decided, alright, we have to get the powers off this guy. May I make a suggestion? I don't know how that happened, but this version of it, where his power is tied to this all-powerful crystal that can continuously keep recharging or losing its energy depending on how everything works itself out, was well done. It was just well done. They built up to it perfectly, and then, because as you start thinking about the power, you start thinking, man, as could Tommy, really turn evil on us on this,
and that's something even Tommy.
You start considering it because he's considering it, and then when they do the reveal of this alternate dimension, you're thinking, now you found out he could, and this is what it would look like if he did, and they show you this whole new version about him taking out the other Rangers.
Personally, I think Jason David Frank is already evil.
I'm glad he's not. You know how many black belts that guy has? He's got more black belts than J.C. Penney. This guy he's got every discipline on the planet. He could murder people if he really wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that he doesn't. Thank you, GDF.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have to. He's already managed to convince enough people that Tommy's the best Ranger. And that's evil enough.
For years, no matter how many lives followed. Even his little returns, because he's been
I'm a Jason guy.
He's been back a few
Yes,
times.
yes, he's had different suits.
Yeah, he actually came back for a full season. Much later on.
Yes, as the Black Ranger.
Yeah, Dino Thunder, right. He came back, which... Thank you.
Which...
They gave us one more.
I'll give him some credit to humility. You know, I jest when I talk about my dislike for him. But I had...
You would have watched CM Punk. That's me tying in my...
You know what?
Washed him up.
You know, having seen the experience, it seems pretty likely.
Now we all know for a fact after those UFC
I was
fights,
so rooting for the hypothetical fight.
No more either. He would have straight up. He would have looked across the ring and saw a hazy putty on the other side of that cage, and he would have worked him over.
But he was recently doing an interview, and they were talking about one of these superhero battles where he fought Scorpion from the Mortal Kombat realm, and he was the White Ranger.
I do recall that.
And he opted to be the
voice actor for it, right?
Well, no. Well, he was cast, but he really wanted to be the Green Ranger. It's like, hey, why don't we do Green Ranger? But the person who puts together these shows is actually a fan of the White Ranger suit, like loves the White Ranger. And he forgets, because he's known as the Green Ranger, forgets that, you know, he's got fans from different generations. And what makes that really cool is that even though in the comic he's the Green Ranger, we get to see things like Saba actually show up. We do see the White Ranger in some variety showing up in this comic as well.
That actually was a very nice take too, adding Saba to the comic.
And having
because the White Ranger in this scenario was an evil character.
Yeah.
So like, how does that work? And they wrote it beautifully with Saba actually trying to stay away from Tommy. He's like, no. If I join him, he's gonna be ridiculous. I gotta stay away from him.
Yeah, and that's honestly and sadly where Volume 3 kind of ends. There is
drove me nuts.
We do get the reveal of, you know, who exactly is Lord Drakkon. We know that it's Tommy. We get to see more of the world. Like, for example, it's not that there's no Rangers, because
that's actually, to your point earlier, that's where it got dark and gritty.
Yeah.
And we saw that other world.
That dystopian future.
Yeah, which I'm assuming must have been recorded during nighttime. I hope it's not.
It's always nighttime. Always.
I've even destroyed the sun. All of it's under my control now.
No, but like, you see, like, I don't want to say there's no Rangers, because we see that there's almost like a police force of just like Mastodon Rangers. Well, it's like a bunch of Black Rangers acting like a police force.
Yeah. As the comic, we're focusing on 3, but as the comic continues on, you start to see different variations of that. It turns out that we did have a few Ranger situations. It unfolds beautifully as we go on. But 3 is definitely the most important of the entire package deal, the entire storyline, because that's where you get that backstory, you get that alternate view, you get to find out who the real villain is, what their motivations are, and it carries over into those. If you're gonna read, if you're gonna pay real close attention to any of the 5, it would be 3. 3 is vital. You have to pay full attention to 3 to get to the end and really enjoy that ending.
So what we're reading kind of leads up to, and we didn't get a chance to read, Shattered Grid, and after that is Beyond the Grid, and the comic is still going. Kyle Higgins is doing his thing.
Very popular, this series. Yeah.
Now I have a feeling that you would recommend it to Ranger fans. We're talking about it very lovingly.
Yeah.
Is this something that you'd pass on to someone who's not a Ranger fan? Is this something that... Could you pass this down to your son? Is he even a Ranger guy?
Yeah. No, my son gets into it a little bit. He doesn't watch it religiously like I do. If it's on TV, he'll catch it. Most of the series for a while was on Netflix. I don't know if it's still there. But he knows of it. He knows what's going on. And as far as the comic, we're still kind of getting him to read a little bit. He likes the pictures and the whatnot. But is it something that I would recommend to... I would recommend this definitely to comic book fans. People of leisure who just love getting the comic book, the feel of that book in their hand and kicking back and really getting a good read in. I think it's awesome. And to compound that with Ranger fans from the show, yes. If you're a newer fan and you're more knowledgeable of the more recent versions, maybe not. It may not carry because the characters in the comic are slightly different from the show. But if you're an old school fan like me and you would love to see some new material from some of your older favorite characters, this is the book to read. This is ridiculously good. Because I haven't done anything Power Rangers in forever. Like I said, I haven't mentioned on my show.
Right.
But I was asked to be here, so I figured I'd do the homework, and I couldn't stop doing the homework. I'm probably going to continue with the app that you gave me for comic books. I'm probably going to continue through with that for a while now. So, yeah, very excited. This is very good. It was great talking to you about it.
No, it's great talking to you, and thank you for being on the show. I've been on your show a couple times.
I know, we're helping
And
each
it's,
other.
oh, this is brothers.
Stuff. It is brotherhood stuff, man.
Yeah,
I'm going to put these back on. These Clockwork Oranges back on you.
Oh, yeah, they look good on you.
Everything looks good on me, man.
Yeah, look at you.
Yeah,
You stud muffin.
I'm humble.
This has been a comic conversation, and I'm so excited to have someone to converse with. I love all you people, though, who are commenting below, commenting on Facebook, commenting on Twitter and Instagram. You can, of course, reach us at Comic Convo on Twitter. That's COMICONVO. And anywhere that you want to plug, where can we reach you?
I dabble in the comics. I change it up entertainment-wise, but obviously predominantly a pro wrestling guy. So if you're into pro wrestling, if you love listening to someone who's funny like myself, with accompany people like him on my show, and you like hearing about pro wrestling, AJOUM.podbean.com is where my episodes air. And of course, I'm all over the soch with A.J Orsini. Just put that in there, you'll find me somewhere. Or when you follow him, I'm in his friends list, so you can go around in his page, and then you can find me.
Absolutely. He has a Twitter, too. He uses it occasionally.
3. The book, the tweet, and the IG. That's it. There's only been
Those are the ones that matter.
Yeah.
Until, eventually. I could see you with the TikTok.
No, I'm not TikToking or snapping or Hangouts or
you're selling yourself
whatever
short.
those things are. I'm 36. I grew up in that mid area of technology. I got just enough. Like the cameras that's in front of me is confusing me. There's lights. There's things going on over there. There's a bulb in my. That's why I put the glasses back on. I'm getting a splitting headache from all these lights. But you guys are professionals here. I like your little setup. It's a good thing.
Yeah, this is new.
Good job, Joe. Good job, Producer Joe.
All right, Producer Joe. So you know how to reach me. You know how to reach him. Let's keep the conversation going.
Do we do lower thirds? Can I? That's where our social media is.
Oh, we've not done that yet. I'd like to start doing it. Let's do that, Joe.
I'm kicking the door in right now. It's just, if we can't, you know what? Next time we'll
figure it out.
I'll get a napkin and just raise it slightly ajar to the desk to have my @ symbol on.
But yes, let's keep the conversation going. Comment below, like the page, share the video, follow us on all of the socials, and
risk a Facebook jailing to put it in people's DMs.
And subscribe to To Be Seen. Thank you for watching.
It's 2BESCENE.com.